everything's going well.
When the moment of truth finally arrived for the 76 starters, multiple former champions Api Reinicke and Robin Houghton were expected to set a blistering pace at the head of the field. The top 10 starting positions for the Carnival City Casino 400. Predictably, the four-wheel drive brigade dominated with 7 buckies in the top 10. Ahead lay 400 kilometers of a tough route laid out by the Koepel Club. Reinicke came under starters' orders at 9 o'clock, a much more respectable starting time than off-roaders are normally subjected to. Carnival City Casino General Manager Rob Walker had the privilege of flagging the crews off. After a dismal season, Reinicke and Houghton were looking for a win in their final round of the championship in the much-improved Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser. The slick road surface made it difficult to maintain control of the powerful vehicle. 44 seconds later, Kobler and Harrington got underway in the Nissan hardbody, and even four-wheel drive was not much of a help in the mud. Back on the road with Reinicke. Oh no, a puncture just over a kilometer into the race. Driving off the designated track was costing Reinicke dear. De Villiers and Jordan blasted off the start line in the Nissan hardbody and set off in hot pursuit of the frontrunners. On board with Kobler as he battled to keep the powerful Nissan under control. Kobler and Harrington passed the stricken Toyota to take an early lead in the race. The Toyota pair was struggling to replace the punctured wheel, while Kobler was reveling in the conditions. A masterful display of driving. Reinicke and Houghton were still at it when De Villiers, with Corbett in the Isuzu in hot pursuit, went blasting by. The Class D Isuzu is light and fast, and the conditions favored Corbett and Moore. Corbett and Moore last year raced in the special vehicle category, with considerable success included winning the Route of Africa. Campaigning in the production vehicle category this season, they had already picked up 3 class wins. De Villiers ran wide at a turn in the stadium, and this allowed the Isuzu to nip through and claim second spot only a few kilometers into the race. The large crowd loved the spectacle of off-road racing on their doorstep. Chepek Sr. and Philip Vosloo were next away in the V-Motors Chenoweth. Traction, or the lack of it, was a major problem, especially for the special vehicles. Gary and Bodo Berthold started 7th in the M&E Glass Dirt Code. The father and son pair had the bit between the teeth, and the Mareka Ford Ranger of Woolwich and Skuldhammer in their sights as Otang Makaganeni and Mike Stengel in the SAM Racing Jimco came into view. Botswana-born Makaganeni has acquitted himself well in only his first season behind the wheel of an off-road vehicle. Mark and Stuart Moffat entered one of a handful of Land Rovers in the event and had their work cut out in the early stages. Having the likes of Carolyn in the Mitsubishi and Paolo Piazza-Musso in the Jeep hot on one's heels added to the pressure. Carolyn made quick work of Moffat, and a short while later, the Jeep also got by. On board with Kobler and Harrington in the Nissan hardbody Super Truck as they slip and slide their way around the route. Five kilometers of man-made route were out of the way, but ahead lay 130 kilometers of terrain that no one believed existed in Gauteng. Corbett and Moore had close to within 10 seconds of the leader and were hell-bent on overtaking them as soon as possible. Chepek and Vosloo had gained 2 places and were lying third in the V-Motors Chenoweth, but had the Nissan of De Villiers and Jordan on their tail. Only seconds behind and in 4th place was the Mareka Ford Ranger of Woolwich and Skuldhammer, the 4.6-litre V8 sounding sweet. The Bertholds were still on a charge in the M&E Glass Dirt Co, designed and locally built by Brandon Harkis and powered by a Nissan V6 engine. Hesitation on the part of Makhakaneni allowed Niels and Zelda van der Walt to gain a place in the Class D Renault Trucks Nissan Hardbody. Championship contender Shumi van Vieren was clawing his way through the field. The Toyota driver was intent on finishing as far ahead of Carolyn as possible to win the championship. Both drivers had led the championship at various stages during the season. Reinicke and Houghton finally got underway again. An air jack wouldn't deflate, which cost them 7 minutes. They lost 30 places and were now faced with a difficult task of passing almost half the field. Reinicke was driving like a man possessed as he started to pick off cars one by one. Johan Gerber was next to fall victim to the charging Toyota pair, much to the delight of a group of journalists. It was now a case of 2 down, 28 to go. "20 minutes into the race, and Grobler and Harrington were very much in control of proceedings. Grobler had a spate of bad luck during the season and had been winless since the Mitsubishi Barberspan 500 in March. Harrington is a co-driver of many years' experience and was standing in for Richard Leake, who was recovering from back surgery. The onboard camera shows just how tough conditions were. It would be even worse for crews lower down the field. Disaster struck when Grobler picked up a puncture, allowing Corbett and Moore to rocket into the lead, hotly pursued by de Villiers in the Nissan. Woolridge and Skoldhammer moved into third place in the Marek of Ford Ranger, but they too picked up a puncture when they hit the rock on the left of the screen. The leading pack, Corbett and Moore, had achieved their objective, which was to lead the race in the Class D Petronas Cynthia Isuzu. De Villiers and Jordan were only seconds behind in the Nissan Hardbody, which was unable to use all the available power in the muddy conditions. Carolyn and Testega were having their last run in the works Mitsubishi Pajero and desperately wanted a win and the overall championship. They made steady progress through the field and picked off ill-handling special vehicles at will. Reinicke and Houghton were having a torrid time in the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser. The narrow tracks and poor visibility made overtaking very difficult. Reinicke eventually moved off the track and got by Toyota teammates Pitt Haasbroek and Christo Bosch and set off after Jackie and Elmarie Hubert in the Volvo turbo-powered VW. This section of the route, laid out by Willy Prinsloo from the Koepel Club, was dubbed the Roof of Gauteng. The rain made the rocky track very slippery, and even four-wheel drive vehicles found the going tough. Van Vieren had the Van der Walts in the Nissan and the Huberts in the VW breathing down his neck. But the VW was having some difficulties climbing to the top of the ridge. The four-wheel drive VW is a crowd pleaser wherever it goes, be it rallies or off-road races, but reliability has been a perennial problem. Tosca farmers, Haasbroek and Bosch, were well placed, with Bosch in with a chance of winning the Class D Co-Drivers Championship. Behind them, Lichtenberg 400 winner Cliff Barker and Malcolm Hubert in the Barker Performance Products Land Rover were forced to retire at the end of the first lap with a slipping clutch. A remarkable performance from KwaZulu-Natal cane farmers Manfred Schroeder and Jack Peckham saw them running well up the field in the Class E diesel-powered Mareka Ford Ranger. Right behind them were Reinicke and Houghton, who had moved well up the field. Special vehicles were littered all over the place, with crews watching helplessly as the production vehicles passed by. The conditions definitely did not favor the special vehicles, which struggled to get traction on the slippery slope. Petang Makahaneni had a shot at the hill. But all that effort in vain, he failed. The Bertolds chose a different route and managed to get to the top, but Makahaneni and Stangl were still hard at it. Reigning Class E champions Andrew and Chris Birkin were slowed when a rock smashed a rear wheel rim and a brake drum on the Hilux. They had to be content with second place in the class. MC Kutsia and Marius Liebenberg found the going tough, but not so the vacation van's Jeep of Paolo Piazzamuso and Scott Abraham. The 5,9-litre V8-powered monster made light work of the incline. Changes made to the Jeep's drivetrain clearly made a difference to the vehicle's performance. The pair had dropped down the field when water swamped the electrics, but they were clawing their way back through the field at a rapid rate of knots. De Villiers and Jordan moved into the lead when the Isuzu broke a rear leaf spring eye halfway into lap 1. It was a case of 0 to 0 in 60 kilometers for Corbett and Moore. Chebek Sr. was able to pile on the pressure on the drier sections of the route and had moved up to second overall in the V-Motors Chenoweth. Problems for Woolridge and Skuldhammer.
Tell Murray we want 3 spare wheels with it.
2 punctures dropped them down the field, but they had moved back up to third. Carolyn and Testega were well placed in the Mitsubishi Pajero, but were having problems with the replacement gearbox, which kept jumping out of second gear. Shumi van Vieren and Vani Kotze had taken over the Class D lead, but would later run out of spare tires and retire from the race. Maurice Bahrain in the Tubtrans Mighty Mag held the Class B lead. A second puncture again dropped Reinecker and Houghton down the field, and they were faced with the frustrating task of making up lost places yet again. While Schroeder and Peckham continued on their merry way at the head of the Class E field, there were problems for Duncan Foss and Mike Griffith.
Now we just got a bit stuck because the other route has been blocked open, so we tried here, but all my thing is that's okay.
After struggling up the rocky incline, MC Gutierrez proceeded to bury his Toyota Land Cruiser in a mudhole. Henry Kirstein and René Justus' charge at the head of the Class B field came to a disastrous end when they crashed the Seco Rock Sandmaster.
Well, we broke a ball joint. One of those things there. Where to break it? Just, yeah. And
Just around the corner.
And what happened, we were leaving the class when that happened, and you know, and all this shit in the world that goes with it.
Class E contenders Kasi Kutsia and Aki Fari picked up a puncture and lost the transfer case sump plug, which cost them over 2 hours on lap 1. Kutsia tracked for 8 kilometers to find oil and a sump plug, only for the pair to later be time barred. At the end of lap 1 on the Carnival City Casino 400, the race leaders were Anil de Villiers and Francois Jordan in the Nissan hardbody super truck. It was a case of 1 down, 2 to go. Franz Chebek Sr. and Philip Vosloo were well in control of the special vehicle category, despite having to battle with poor visibility in the open cockpit of the V-Motors Chenoweth. Production Vehicle Championship leaders Bucks Carolyn and Henny Testega soldiered on in the ailing Mitsubishi Pajero, and third overall was fair reward for their consistent efforts. A quick pit stop for 3 spare wheels, and Woolridge and Skuldhammer were on their way again. The Mareka Ford Ranger was well placed in 4th position and a constant threat to the leaders. Arpi Reinecker and Robin Houghton had again worked their way through the field and held down 5th place, 11 minutes behind the leading crew. The top 10 after lap 1 of the Carnival City Casino 400. production vehicles dominated, with only 2 special vehicles in the top 10 after 135 kilometers of tough racing.